As you know, here in the United States, there are many people that are very gun related. Okay. And I don't want to go down the whole, gun side of it. But for example, a lot of people will not buy or will not go get a medical marijuana card, because at that point, if you do that, you have to surrender any concealed carry licenses you have in order to carry your weapon.
Is that the case federally, or is that state by state?
That's a by state type thing. Okay. And so what happens is, by doing that, now you've got to go ahead, and if you've got the Delta-8, which produces a very, very similar result, or if not the same result as the actual cannabis extract, now you don't have to have the license, which means, if you want to go ahead and for safety purposes carry a concealed weapon, you still can with your CCW.
The state of Delta-8. Delta-8 gets a bad rap. Or does it? Recent news reports about the misuse of the cannabinoid, known as regular THC's younger sibling, have cast a safety shadow over its use and brought its synthetic status under scrutiny. But, to give Delta-8 a fair hearing, let's chat to Sam Taylor from Heartland Works in Ohio to better understand the challenges and opportunities. We do know that it takes a lot of hemp to create a Delta-8 product that offers the same THC potency as other products, but let's find out more about Delta-8. Boom, and welcome to the Lobsterpot podcast. Current time of recording, it's the 1st of 2023, I think. Is that right, Jamie? Or we have?
I don't know. We're 5 days in. Again, not supposed to date it, but I'm going to. But I'm already playing catch up. But that's good. I'm also admiring our guest today's background a lot, which I'm not going to spoil it because I know you're going to do an intro. But the background is something special.
Exactly. And again, it would very much date, the time of year of recording. Oh, here we go.
Okay, so if you're talking about it, I might as well, get it spinning, So.
Absolutely. So welcome, Sam Taylor from Heartland Works in Ohio. How are you today? How's things shaking out for you? Are you still very much in the Christmas spirit, despite it being 5th of Jan?
Oh yeah, I know. We get into the Christmas spirit a whole bunch here, and so the entire house is decked out, and so it's one of those things you hate to put it up and just take it right back down and not enjoy it. So.
Oh, absolutely, you got to own it. Absolutely, very cool. But again, on the theme, there's a segue somewhere here between marijuana and trees. But your specialty is as Delta-8 products. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and about the company, and then perhaps tell us a little bit more about Delta-8 as well, because I think it's something that we're hearing about more and more. And again, I know it's got a fairly big sort of presence in the US, but there's some confusion and around it. But tell us more about yourself and the work you're doing, Sam.
Sure. I actually am the area sales manager for Heartland Works here in the US. We are the distribution arm of the Yumi Group, who's based out of Shenzhen, China. Okay. We own, the Yumi Group owns brands that you have heard of, like Soren, who makes, nicotine devices, along with Airbar and a couple other brands, including our Dream 8 and which is our Delta-8 products and our CBD products. And then our OAO and Vape-C products, which are our nicotine-based vapes. Okay. So what we've done is the Yumi Group wanted a little bit more information on how products were being used, what was hot, what was working. So they created Heartland Works, and that's who I work for. So anyway, what we do is all of our stuff is actually built and designed, and the devices are created and filled over in China and then shipped to us, except for the Delta-8. Because of the legalities of transportation and things like that between countries and all that, all of our Delta-8 products are actually made here in the United States. Okay. Sure. So we have a little bit more control on the processes and going with third-party companies to actually do the filling or whatever here for us.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think there's a lot of, in terms of, I kind of want to almost go back to basics a little bit. And I think most people will kind of know Delta-8 as, basically, THC light, inverted commas, or something like that. But what actually is it? Because it is essentially a cannabinoid, isn't it? So tell us more. What do you know about what about it itself?
Okay, now, from what I'm about to tell you, this is my understanding on everything. Okay,
of course.
And of course, if I misstate something, I apologize. If there's something that I've got
not a scientist. Yeah, that's cool. Absolutely.
But anyway, so what happens is from my understanding, okay, let's start over at the beginning. In 2018, Congress created the Farm Bill here in the United States. Okay, that said, if a plant under the cannabis umbrella, if it had less than 0.3% THC in the plant by dry volume weight, it was hemp. If it had more than 0.3%, it's marijuana. Okay, so that's the differentiation. So it can be the same plant, but dependent upon the THC level, that's what they're going with. So what they do is when THC or when a hemp plant starts to degrade, it converts it's a whatever it is, a biological thing, where it actually changes everything from the CBD into the THC. Okay, when you look at the amount of THC in there based by the dry volume weight, if you were to smoke flower from marijuana, or if you were to smoke flower from hemp, the hemp is marijuana light, absolutely, because it takes so much more volume of plant to smoke in order to get the same effects as the marijuana. So what they have figured out is that you can actually go in and remove the THC from the hemp plant, okay, and extract that. And then once they do that, THC is THC, okay? The difference is now they can do it, but when they extract it, there are no flavonoids or terpenes involved with that. It is strictly the pure THC. The companies then come in, and like us, what we do is we use all natural, things found in nature as far as flavors and the terpenes and all that, and put those together and combine them with the actual THC molecules. Okay. Some companies out there are synthetically making the flavors and the flavonoids and the terpenes and putting those in, which I consider a synthetic. Okay. Even though our stuff technically was not, something that was put in place by nature, we're putting natural ingredients in with the THC molecules. Okay.
So just to recap, just to understand. So in terms of, so Delta-8 is like a kind of marijuana light in terms of the THC content is 0.3%. So you can basically take the THC content, 0.3% of it from a hemp plant, synthesize that, or whatever the process is, extract that, and turn that into basically a vape that, is then flavored with other natural ingredients or derivatives. And because, so you can, but if it's kind of 0.3%, that means it's not going to have a euphoric effect in the same way that marijuana does, but it does.
No. It's by dry volume weight of the plant. THC is going to be THC. It's just the plant has less THC, oil, liquid, whatever you want to call it, as they're extracting out of it. It has less THC in that plant. Okay. So whereas marijuana, and I'm going to make this up, marijuana may take, one plant to get 1 gram of THC, extract, whereas a hemp plant may take 5 plants to get the same amount.
But you can still extract that, and regardless of how much THC there is, if the product itself, like the vape pen, has, it can have whatever THC. Is there a limit on the number of THC, the amount of THC it can have within the Delta-8 vape? Just to kind of, okay. So essentially, you can just extract as much THC you want from hemp plants. That's the kind of Delta-8 that has the same effect as marijuana or Delta-9 or whatever you want to call it, THC. And you can still have the kind of, the high effect from the THC derived from the hemp plants, which is essentially Delta-8. And you put that in a vape format. Wow. So it's kind of, it feels like, as with a lot of things within the kind of cannabis industry, it's a really, really smart workaround to kind of be able to sell these sort of products. And understanding from, what I've read, there's something like, it's available, like you say, under the Farm Bill, that's kind of, the interpretation of that is what is essentially makes it legal, in inverted commas. That's your understanding too?
Correct. Yeah. The Farm Bill made anything that is considered legal to be sold, transported, used, whatever you want to do with it in the United States. Now, some states, of course, have gone in and banned Delta-8. Okay, and typically that happens in actual states where they have legalized, adult use, recreational use. Okay.
I was reading about Colorado, and Colorado is one of the early adopters. One of the first states to really come online in terms of adult use. But Delta-8's actually illegal there. Is that right?
That's correct. And what happens is, number one, because of the taxation side of it, the states are making more money from the actual marijuana side because of having dispensaries and the taxation, everything that goes along with that. Whereas, for example, here in Ohio, there is no tax on Delta-8 other than whatever the sales tax would be. Okay. Whereas like with my nicotine products, there's a nicotine, vape tax, okay, that they're charging extra for that, but they don't do that with Delta-8 here. So what happens is now it's not producing the tax revenue to the state, and the state doesn't have any regulation or regulatory effect over the product itself, which they don't like. So when adult use recreational marijuana is legalized, they typically go ahead and outlaw the actual Delta-8.
Okay. So is it kind of like, do you feel like Delta-8 is almost for states that haven't got adult use, it's almost like that Trojan horse effect? If you can get Delta-8 in, when things change, then that's almost an opportunity. Like people sort of say almost with the medical marijuana, it's like, okay, once we've got a medical market, then that just paves the way. Do you feel like Delta-8 is similar opportunity? Or, I mean, I don't want to kind of devalue it in a way, but
I think it's very, very similar because number one, as you know, here in the United States, there are many people that are very gun related. Okay. And I don't want to go down the whole, gun side of it. But for example, a lot of people will not buy or will not go get a medical marijuana card, because at that point, if you do that, you have to surrender any concealed carry licenses you have in order to carry your weapon.
Is that the case federally, or is that state by state?
That's a by state type thing. Okay. And so what happens is by doing that, now you've got to go ahead, and if you've got the Delta-8, which produces a very, very similar result, or if not the same result as the actual cannabis extract, now you don't have to have the license, which means, if you want to go ahead and for safety purposes carry a concealed weapon, you still can with your CCW. And that's another part of it that comes into play, as opposed to everybody saying, let's just get a medical marijuana card. Well, no, there's other ramifications that come with that. So
it's always going down the rabbit hole of legislation. Is one thing knocks into one thing, and the domino effect that it has on people and their lives and the choices that they're able to make. It's interesting that the quote unquote workaround, and again, as Dave said, don't want to devalue Delta-8 because that's very much not what we're trying to do, but it's that workaround using the understanding of the of the difference between hemp and marijuana, and the fact that can essentially give someone access to something that they might otherwise like, and it doesn't have a negative impact in another part of their life.
Plus the other side of it, and I owned an insurance agency for 37 and a half years. Okay. When you have your medical marijuana card, you've got other things. If you're looking for life insurance or other products too, that if you're just going to the local head shop or vape shop to buy Delta-8 product, that doesn't show on any record anywhere. Okay. So, I mean, there's other things that come into play like that, where, as you mentioned, you've got to change this, and this, because that one little, having that medical marijuana card is going to go ahead and create a problem.
No, absolutely. And I think there was something similar in France when they had their medical marijuana program. We spoke to a lady a little while ago who was telling us that, in France, they had a trial, but basically if you wanted to be, as part of that trial for medical marijuana, you had to surrender your driver's license. So you can imagine there weren't many people that did it, kind of thing. So it's like, well,
not the way to get adoption. I think it kind of speaks to the wider issue around federal legalization of cannabis generally, and as much as everyone would love it to happen, I think most people, certainly in our industry, are very keen on it happening, and there's a lot of talk about when it will happen. The reason it takes a long time is because of the complexity of what doing it means for so many other areas, and not just the legal complexity of it. A lot of times it's the competitive complexity. So there's obviously pushback from alcohol, there's pushback from medical, there's lots and lots of different aspects that that make it difficult to kind of contend with. And Delta-8, at least right now, seems like it has its own position as a result of that. And I think that in its own right is quite an interesting thing. It's a market that has cropped up to deal with a lack of another market, and is kind of gaining strength through that.
And opposed to having to go to a black market, and deal with the guy on the street, you can actually go into your favorite, vape shop or whatever and pick up these products, all over the place.
Yeah. Does it have, again, probably a basic question for you, in terms of transporting it across state lines? With cannabis, it's a bit different, but how does it work? So if it's illegal in Colorado, for instance, and you wanted to fly some into Colorado, that is just illegal, or is it just the sale of it, or how does that kind of work?
Well, no, when we went out to Vegas for MJ BizCon, if I would have brought any Delta-8 from Ohio into Nevada, it's illegal once I landed in Nevada. Okay. Now, did TSA look at anything? No, they don't really care. That's not what they're after. But still, that could be an issue. Okay. So you have to know the state you're going into. So if you're just driving into the local state next door and it's illegal, and if for some reason you would get pulled over or stopped by a police officer, well, number one, how are they going to tell if a vape pen is Delta-9, Delta-8? How are they going to know it's not just nicotine? Because they smell like blueberry muffins. I mean, it doesn't give away like you're going to have the actual skunk smell of the actual true cannabis. So they've got to have a reason to stop you. But if they did, technically, I'm sure they would probably just take it. If somebody's walking around with a 1 gram vape pen that's got, Delta-8 in it, I don't think they're going to be doing hard time. But you still have to be cognizant of where you're going to and what their laws are. Okay. And it works the same way coming out of Nevada. If you're carrying, legal marijuana that you purchased there in a vape pen, okay, and you're coming back to Ohio. Now, Ohio, that's illegal here. So, it's sort of a give and take. You have to sort of pay attention to the states and what you can and can't do.
That's a minefield in and of itself. It's something that we don't really contend with here. And I think that is perhaps one of the reasons it's quite an intriguing proposition, because everything here is, in the UK, certainly everything is federally, we don't call it federally, but everything is legal everywhere. The differences in rules are really minor stuff. It's nothing, it's ever going to get you any jail time or anything like that for making mistakes. And that's why it's its own offering. And I think, as Dave mentioned, the intrigue around Delta-8 for Europe, again, is that it's a way of introducing something that is made from something else, but is a bit more palatable. So calling it light or calling it, anything like that, it just makes access more easy. Are you seeing kind of much draw towards Europe with Delta-8 at the moment, or is that kind of growing?
There's, I work with a couple of specialty CBD shops, and they actually have our products in there along with all of their natural stuff and everything that they're doing with true CBD to help people. Okay. So, by doing that, they have looked at the fact that the way ours is manufactured and the quality of the product that they really, really like, and the fact of, the way that we use all the natural ingredients and everything else from there, they are willing to put that into their pure CBD store. We're coming out with some CBD droppers, and we're coming out with, some other products. We've got a THC and CBD infused personal lubricant that is manufacturer right now that we'll be releasing hopefully sometime around Valentine's Day. We'll see. That'd be a perfect time to release
absolutely.
that. So we're going down the road with different things with the CBD and the Delta-8 THC to be, brought into the products to expand the markets. So,
and on that note, in terms of the kind of therapeutic benefits of Delta, obviously it produces that kind of low level kind of euphoric high in the same way that, regular THC does. And again, but in terms of, people using it for medication, what do you know of that?
I have, including myself and lots of friends who use our Delta-8 products medicinally. Okay. Mm-hmm. From the time now, here in June, I'm going to be 60. Okay. So from the time I was about 15 years old until last May, I would sleep anywhere from 3 to 5 hours per night. Okay. Sometimes I was up once or twice during that time frame because my mind is always working. I'm always going.
Yeah.
And so I had trouble sleeping and was always tired. Well, when we came out with our Delta-8 products, I'm a salesperson who believes I've got to understand our product. I've got to know how it is. There's too many people that don't do that, and you don't have that in-depth understanding of the product. I have tried all of our products, okay? And I've got a couple that I lean on more than others, but normally every night before I go to bed, I'll go in with my vape pen and have a couple of hits off of that. And then you know what? I'm sleeping 8 hours a night now because it shuts my mind off. And it's not necessarily about the fact of the getting high and that stigma of being a stoner or whatever. But you know what? I go to sleep and I'm sleeping 7-8 hours, which I've never done before. And I wake up, feel rested and feel really good. So from that standpoint, medicinally, to answer your question, Dave, it actually made a big difference for me. And I've got a lot of friends that have some of the same issues that they've been given samples of our product or whatever, and it's doing the same thing for them. Now, that's not to say, our Wild Lily, which tastes like jelly beans. That's not saying that one works best for everybody. Maybe they need our Sun-Kissed Daisy, which tastes like a lemon cookie with powdered sugar. Or maybe they need, the strawberry cough or whatever. The different flavonoids and terpenes are going to work differently with everyone's bodies. Everybody's a little different.
And I guess everyone will have personal preferences to what flavors they like as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, it can be used for that. Of course, according to FDA, we can't say it's does this or that or whatever, but it does work. So
yeah, absolutely. And again, to kind of, to come into this kind of a negative perception for the very synthetic stuff. What do you say to that? What when people kind of talk about Delta-8, I was just kind of having a look on a sort of information website, talking about legality of Delta-8 in the UK. And I think it says basically, the UK law surrounding Delta-8 THC, because it's, essentially, because it's often made synthetically, UK law prohibits any synthetic mind-altering substances.
Right.
Similarly, in I guess in the US, the idea of synthetic, products purely, they seem to have a particularly bad reputation, and it seems to be, stigmatizing Delta-8 to some extent. At least that's my understanding. What are your thoughts on that? And what would you say when people sort of say, okay, Delta-8, I've heard bad things about it? What's your kind of comeback to that?
Well, the best thing that I can tell people is this: let's compare this a little bit. Do you like a low-end, cheapest can of beer you can get, or do you like a really good craft beer? Okay, and that's what we're comparing here too. There are cheap brands on the market that are full of all kinds of synthetic garbage and fillers or whatever else they're putting in there, okay, where they're not worried about the quality and the control of the product. It's about getting that into the store, so the dealers are paying, or the retailers are spending $7 for this, 3-gram device, and it's junk, and people say, I tried that and I got a headache, or it didn't work, or whatever. Then you have the other end, which is the higher end, which is typically going to be a little bit more expensive, but you get what you pay for. And that's where we want to be. We're not worried about being the cheapest product on the market. This is not a race to the bottom. We've got a product that we feel is good. And the people that have tried it and have used our product, they understand that. And they don't have a problem paying a little bit extra, because when they go into that retail store and that product's selling for $19 or that product's selling for $21 for our product, and those aren't real prices. That's yeah. But whether they're going to pay the extra $2 because this stuff was really good and we really liked it. Plus some other things that I actually do as I visit my stores, okay, and my distributors, is I go in there and I've got a tester set up that I bring in all my products and I set them there. We've got disposable tips. They can taste the product. Other companies don't do this. So now they're going, ooh, I really like that Blue Dream, or ooh, that Sour Trainwreck's really good. It gives the customer the ability to do it and test that to see if it's something flavor profile they like, compared to randomly picking a box off the shelf.
But I guess, other than being able to do that, how can people differentiate between the quality? Obviously price is a kind of indication. And like you say, it's nice that, you can't test everywhere all the time.
Right.
So how do people differentiate between quality and bad quality? Is it a case of, well, you just need to ask them, or is it kind of, can you list that information? Is it the sort of thing you can even make claims about, or how does the consumer know, other than being recommended something by somebody or trying it for themselves?
I think the biggest thing is the company that's producing the product using naturally occurring flavonoids and terpenes, and hooking them with the THC molecule, or are they just producing things in the laboratory that have a taste like a blueberry muffin, or like a lemon or citrus or whatever? Is it a full synthetic made thing that's being put there, or is it a naturally occurring? And as long as they're going with the naturally occurring, they're a lot better off. You're getting a higher quality product.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really, really good to know. And I think that's, again, thinking about what you said about the kind of UK law and things like that, it sounds like, the products that you produce would technically be legal here. But, if it was fully synthetic. But again, like you were talking about, the cops or the TSA, whoever, kind of like searching, looking at a vape, they're going to bust you for something. And they're going to, is this synthetic or not, sir? They're not going to be doing that sort of close analysis. They don't have they probably don't know enough about it to be able to make those sort of calls. So again, that
or the manpower to especially train people to sit there and watch in case, Sam's walking through the airport and he's got an illegal vape. That's they don't have time for that. So.
Yeah, well, exactly. But it's curious that, it's these kind of small distinctions that, are almost, you can't, it's not something, unless you really, really know about it, that you could tell. But so in terms of sort of public safety and interests of someone looking for a quality product, it's always better to look for kind of naturally derived Delta-8 products for that, and again, it's not just, again, obviously your stuff is, goes without saying that's where you come from, but again, there must be a lot of, I mean, do you feel like there's a lot of shysters out there who are sort of like, yeah, try this Delta-8 stuff. It's, and it could just be anything. I mean, that's always the danger. And I guess similarly to kind of, getting street cannabis, I mean, the problem is you just don't know what you're getting. You're going off the recommendation of someone, whose track record of honesty might not be, not to say that, there's a parallel there, but it's almost like, well, you don't know what you don't know sometimes. And it's like, how do you kind of, exercise some sort of discerning quality control as a consumer, I suppose, and how, if you're interested in Delta-8, what should you know?
Well, a couple of things there, okay, and it brings up a situation we had here in the United States where what was going on was there were testing companies that were basically being paid to inflate the THC levels and all that in the products, okay, and so with that being the case, people were buying products that did not really live up to what they were listed as on their certificates of analysis. Okay. So there's been a whole big thing going on there. So now what's going on is a lot of those companies are either being shut down or are no longer doing things because they've got the bad name because they were inflating, THC levels and not reporting on what was actually in the product. And then you have other companies that are stepping up now that like, hey, we're doing it. So we're having all of our stuff reevaluated. Okay. We want to know for sure the company that we use did not have a problem, but we want to make sure that what they told us is legitimate because we're giving that to the consumer. And if we're giving them something other than what we say it is, that's not good. That will come back. It might be good for the first, 6 months or a year, but eventually it'll come back to bite you. So you might as well be upfront and transparent with what's in your product and show if there's heavy metal in it, show if there's, all these other, if there's chemicals or whatever, so the consumer can make an educated guess. That's why with every one of our products, we have certificates of analysis available. Okay. A lot of companies don't do that.
Is there so there's no legal requirement to do that per se?
There is not in Ohio. Some of the other states, they require certain links or whatever, but a lot of the certificates have not been updated for years, because typically once a company goes ahead and they make a formulation, they get their certificate, and this was from 2019. Well, they're using, different products now. They're putting different flavors in. So they, you have to sort of get past that and find out, okay, hey, who is actually keeping up, making sure that the batches that they're creating. So for example, another thing that's nice is on the better products you're going to find out there, there's going to be a batch number on the actual Delta-8 product, so that we know this was made on this date from this manufacturing plant, blah, blah, blah. So if you see people starting to get sick, well, what batch was it? Okay. Was this batch? A lot of the lower end products don't have batch numbers and don't have all the certificates available. It's just a product for dirt cheap that people are getting to get stoned. And I prefer to tell my retailers, I said, hey, if when I go into a store, I tell them, I say, hey, if you're looking for the cheapest product for someone to actually, some 21-year-old kid to get stoned on, that's not my product. We're looking for the soccer moms who need to relax at the end of a busy day with the kids. We're looking for the 30-year-old kids that are still playing hockey, and they're like, oh, I'm a little rough after 15 years of hockey, and things like that, to help alleviate some of the issues, not necessarily let's get you flat on your back and passed out. So
no, but again, it's interesting that there's no almost like regulation around it, because again, I mean, do you feel like like you say, when you speak to sort of the retailers and I guess bud tenders, are they making those sort of recommendations, or at least you feel there's a need to educate them more around those sorts of things, because it doesn't come from anywhere else, so it has to come from the product,
right?
From you guys, right?
I think the thing that you've got to look at is, for example, one of the our new team members who's up in Cleveland comes from a dispensary background. He worked in a dispensary for about 3 years. And he was one of the leading people. When people would come in, he would recommend particular products or particular strains for people based upon what their issue was. And a couple of our products, he says he will put up against anything out there in the dispensary whatsoever. And he really likes the product. And having a background from that, I tend to listen to him a little bit more on that type of an issue. So, again, a lot of it's trial and error. Things that work for me might not work for you. So you can't just discount a product based upon you didn't get the effect when your body needs something different than what mine needs to get the effect. And it's the same way with any cannabis strain. I mean, they are all the same, whether it's marijuana or Delta-8 from that standpoint. So.
Absolutely. I know it's just to kind of almost wrap things up a little bit. What do you feel like the potential or the future for sort of Delta-8 is as the kind of product range kind of expands, or do you think that, so it's kind of, what's the opportunity? And also, do you feel like, as more states come online with adult use, recreational cannabis, there's going to be, the drop in kind of market appetite for Delta-8 products? Do you think it will remain consistent?
My gut feeling is on it, Delta-8 is an in-between thing right now. Okay. If all the states come on, and the federal government, legalizes adult use and the states go along with it, then there's going to be actual, marijuana available, the cannabis from that side of it. And there will be less of a desire for the Delta-8 unless those things are only sold with the license at a dispensary. And I think that's where the biggest qualification you're going to get is. So as long as somebody can walk into a store, just show their ID and say, hey, I'm here, I want to buy something, particular strain, and it's not a reported back thing, I think then at that point the Delta-8 stuff may start declining. Okay. But then again, we offer some vape product, with our Dream 8 product, which is our Delta-8, that they don't necessarily have the flavors and the vapes in the actual dispensaries. So the dispensaries then are going to have to come on board. Well, now if we've got our supply chain set up to switch from Delta-8 to a Delta-9 and create a vape pen, that's a no-brainer. So, but now we're into the legal market and into the dispensaries or whatever. So I think it's sort of a transitional piece.
Absolutely. And I think also, more and more as we speak to people, we're hearing more about, the desire for kind of low level THC products. People don't want to get, like you say, flat on their back. They want to just have a small kind of, dosage, a small kind of alleviation, what it might be. People, recreationally or, as much as anything else, what they call it, dad weed, like 5%, THC and things like that. There's still going to be a need for that. And perhaps Delta-8 still answers that kind of call as well.
Yeah. So I see lots of possibilities for it, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. But at some point, if everything becomes federally legal, it's very possible that at that point, if we've got we can use Delta-8, extract the THC, put it in these same vape pens with the same flavonoids or terpenes or whatever. Why do we need Delta-8 at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it kind of it remains to be seen how everything sort of plays out. And I guess, again, it's still an opportunity for companies like yourself to kind of create a brand, to create a product offering and, get into new markets, And I think the change is coming. It's a question of how long that's going to take. And I think, Delta-8 is a smart workaround, at least in the interim. But I think the future is, jury's out still. But it's interesting nonetheless. But no, thank you so much for coming on, Sam. It's been an education. So I appreciate you taking the time. And we will speak to you again soon, I'm sure. So thank you very much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.